Gamers, welcome to a video in a completely different format than you are used to. We're doing a tier list for every tabletop RPG that I have at least some experience with. Admittedly, some more than others, but I have experience with all of these, at least some experience with all of these. But I'm not ranking them from best to worst, and I'm not ranking them from worst to best. I'm actually ranking them in terms of crunch, and by crunch I mean the amount of game mechanics, math, steep learning curves, options that a tabletop RPG has. So basically, a high crunch tabletop RPG is a RPG that takes longer to learn. There's a lot going on, turns take longer, and it's more for real hardcore gamers. While low crunch RPGs are just sit down, read a copy of a PDF for 3 pages for 5 minutes, and you can start playing. That is what I want to do right here, because I often get asked what RPG lies where on the spectrum of crunch and all that kind of stuff, and I couldn't figure out a way to make this clear other than doing a tier list. Now, this is all my very own opinion from my experiences, so this could completely and totally be different for other people. Now, this is a completely unscripted video, and I don't know for sure which order I'm going to do this in and everything. I'm just gonna talk about this while I do it. Now, you might have seen a jump cut just now. I forgot to add Wrath and Glory, which is the Warhammer RPG, to this, because I now have 2 sessions of Wrath and Glory under my belt, so I can at least talk about it, right? So what I want to start with, for sure, is D&D 5th edition 2014. D&D 5th edition for me at this point is, by the way, almost all of these are D20 systems outside of the Cypher system, which is actually technically also a D20 system, but different. And then there is Wrath and Glory, which is a D6 system, which is completely and utterly different. So just so you know, most of these are going to feel super familiar if you are into Dungeons & Dragons 5th edition. So that is why, one of the reasons why I'm putting that in the middle. For me, Dungeons & Dragons 5th edition is the one RPG that other RPGs are measured against. I play bass guitar. I used to play bass guitar for a living, part-time, and there is a Fender Precision bass that all bass guitars are measured against. So D&D 5th edition is the Fender Precision bass of RPGs, if that makes any sense. I'm rambling. So, that is the baseline. There's a lot of mechanics, but it's also not super duper crunchy, right? So there's not sometimes here and there's too much going on, but also a lot of the optional rules are in extra books, which means you just decide if you want to use them or not. So the base D&D 5e, the Player's Handbook from 2014, to my opinion, is still a work of art, and it's a great RPG. If you want to get into RPGs right now and you just want a lifetime of fun, you can do that with only the Player's Handbook and a copy of the Monsters Manual from 2014, or any other monster manual, third-party monster manual, and if you have an experienced game master, you're ready to go, right? So D&D 5e. Now, the next one I want to put right next to that is the Cypher System. Now, I know this might sound like I'm contradicting myself when it comes to crunch, when it comes to the Cypher System, because for years now, ever since I'm talking about the Cypher System, I'm talking about how easy it is to play. It is much easier to play, especially on the lower levels, than D&D 5th edition. It's super easy, it has a lot of freedom going on and all of that stuff. But at the same time, the more I play it, the more I realize that the further you go in the tiers of play, the more crunchy the game gets, and the game can get pretty damn crunchy when you hit tier 2 or late tier 2, early tier 3. That is because, first of all, character creation in the Cypher System, it is everything. Every class, which is a type in the Cypher System, is combinable with every descriptor, with every other thing in the book. Everything is combinable with everything. Some stuff might not just make a lot of sense, but there are so many options. There's millions of options, literally, just at level 1 to create your character. So that can get quite overwhelming. So that kind of balances it out for me. So the gameplay, running it, is much easier. I have a video which teaches you the base mechanics of the Cypher system in 5 minutes. It is much, much easier, but there's a lot more options for your character sentence, and also, when you level up, there's a lot more freedom for leveling up and what you're doing with that level up and that kind of stuff. And that kind of crunch balances out towards 5th edition. Because towards 5th edition, when you create a character, all you need to look at basically for most situations is your race and your class and possibly an optional feat, right? So that's just, you take the race, you take everything from your race, you take that class, and you take everything from that class. And that's it. For the Cypher system, there's much more going on, especially when you level up, but in general, although the crunch lies somewhere completely different, the Cypher system for me lies in like the B tier and is like a baseline. Also, the Cypher system is completely different from 5th edition. It uses a D20, but not in the same way as any 5th edition D&D game, where in the Cypher system, well, you need to watch my 5-minute video. It works differently, and to my opinion, it works great. Now, I have a group right now where we used to play 5th edition, then we moved on to Tales of the Valiant, which I'm going to talk about in a little bit. But I also have a group which is where I'm playing the Cypher system. So for me, these RPGs are good for different people. For me, if you have a group of gamers, like real gamers, then the D&D 5th edition or Tales of the Valiant or maybe even Pathfinder might be better for that group. But I have another group which is just basically a group of friends who want to be together and make a lot of fun and just don't really think about game mechanics too much. Then the Cypher system and some of these less crunch stuff comes into play. These games aren't better or worse than other games. They're just for different people, right? And I, as a game master, always try to find the right game for the right group. That brings me to let's just take Tales of the Valiant right here by Kobold Press. This has been released last year or late previous year. Anyway, I lost track of time. Tales of the Valiant is a 5th edition based RPG, and I'm putting that in the A tier in terms of crunch. Now, the reason for that is it is basically, to my opinion, it is D&D on steroids. It is completely backwards compatible with 5th edition Dungeons & Dragons. So if you are playing 5th edition Dungeons & Dragons right now and you want a good monster book, you can pick up the Tales of the Valiant monster book. You want a good Game Master's Guide, pick up the Game Master's Guide from Tales of the Valiant. You want your players to have other options for player characters like races and classes and all that kind of stuff. Pick up the player book and give it to them and have them create a character from there. It's completely backwards compatible. It will work with every adventure and every book you already have. Wizards of the Coast or third party will work with everything. But the difference here is, although they add a few rules here and there and they change a few rules here and there, there's not thing that really sets it apart and makes it more crunchy when it comes to that, because like doom points are super easy to track, luck points are super easy to track. It is just more monsters in Tales of the Valiant, for example, have a lot more abilities, have a lot more going on, right? Player characters have a lot more abilities, have a lot more options. There's just more options, like even at level 1 or 2, there's more options for you to do in a turn of combat or a social encounter or whatever. There's just more of everything, if that makes any sense. So if D&D 5e, you might be burned out on D&D 5e right now, and you're looking for another RPG, and you're like, I kind of want to stay with 5th edition, but I also don't want to keep buying Wizards of the Coast stuff because they keep fucking people over. I agree. Just move into Tales of the Valiant. I'm completely 100% not kidding. Tales of the Valiant is 5th edition, but just done by Kobold Press, which just means it's done much, much better, right? So, next one. Let's take one of my favorites right now. Has to be Nimble RPG or Nimble 5e. I'm gonna put this all the way down at the bottom. Nimble is exactly what it says it is. It says it's Nimble 5e, which means it's based on 5e mechanics. If you've been playing 5th edition Dungeons & Dragons or Tales of the Valiant or even Pathfinder or that kind of stuff, Nimble is that RPG that you can just pick up and play. If you have a bunch of people, maybe you are, I don't know, you rented out a cabin in the woods with your family, and there's a fire going on right there. People are drinking a little bit, and a few people ask you like, hey, what is that RPG thing you have been doing all your life? And you're like, you know what? Let's play a game. And you just download the PDF of Nimble 5e and you start playing in like, I don't know, 5-10 minutes. People go to the toilet, take shit, right? Or go to the fridge and take a beer or whatever. When they're back, you're already sitting there with a bunch of dice and you can start playing. That is what Nimble RPG is all about. It is super simple, super fast, super quick, and it has a really cool mechanic of not having to roll to hit. You just, for example, if your character dishes out a what is this? D12. You just roll a D12. Automatically, what is on your D12 is your damage. You don't roll 2 hits. If you roll max on your D12, it becomes a critical hit. If you roll 1, which is the minimum on your D12 or your D6 or your D4 or whatever, you miss. That's the only situation where you miss. At first, when I read this, it didn't make any sense for me. It was like, what? You're taking away the 2-hit thing? That doesn't make any sense. But once you try it and you read deeper into it, it actually makes a ton of sense. It makes a ton of sense. But it is for those situations where you might not have a bunch of hardcore gamers, or you might have like a mixed group. You might have like 3 hardcore gamers and 2 people who are like, oh yeah, I want to try this out because I'm really interested in this. You just pick Nimble 5e and play a few sessions or a few hours of Nimble 5e with them. And with that, I want to go to my very own tabletop RPG. Yes, I put it in there because I'm still developing it. It was kickstarted, through BackerKit. It was crowdfunded. It raised enough money. I'm working on it. There's already a PDF you can download for free. Link in the description below. It is ready to play, ready to test. I really want your opinion on everything, and it serves the exact same purpose as Nimble, basically. But I'm taking it even a step further. I'm leaving in the 2-hit roll, but I'm going much more into a direction of like monster stat blocks are simplified, adventuring rules are simplified, resting rules are simplified, and it's called the Simple System, which is stripped down, interactive, minimalistic, player-friendly, lightweight, and easygoing. Simple, right? Yeah, it's my very own tabletop RPG. It's also in the D tier when it comes to simplicity. It's right there with Nimble. It kind of has the same mission. At least that's how I feel about Nimble, but it kind of has the same mission as Nimble, but I'm just doing it in a different way. That's basically what I'm doing. I'm doing it in my own way. Although I really love Nimble, I'm doing that in my own way. Let's take another one. Let's take, which one should I take? Let's put one in the S tier. No, first I want to go for DC20 by The Dungeon Coach. The Dungeon Coach is a YouTuber who was also crowdfunded, if I'm not mistaken, has his own RPG called DC20. And sorry, I'm not putting this in A, this needs to be in C, sorry, right there. It is an RPG that is also heavily 5e based, but also it isn't. It is a little bit more its own thing than, for example, Tales of the Valiant. Tales of the Valiant is mostly the narrative is different from 5th edition, but the mechanics are almost entirely the same, with some exceptions, of course. But DC20 takes 5th edition, and that's why I'm putting it in C tier. It takes 5th edition, and it takes out a lot of these rules from 5th edition, and simplifies them, and then puts them back. So when I say that, you might think it should be in D tier, where it should be like super not crunchy, right? But that is not the case to my opinion. To my opinion, DC20 is also adds a few things. Like the armor mechanic. It's just something that pops in mind. They have an armor mechanic that's just a little bit different from the armor mechanic from 5th edition. And it changes some stuff up, which... It is a little bit easier, a little bit more streamlined. It's just a more streamlined version of 5th edition, right? It's more streamlined. That's basically it. It's a more streamlined version of 5th edition, which means that you take 5th edition, streamline it, and you just take it one step down towards more streamliney, which makes it a C, to my opinion. It's a great game. It has great art. The writing is good. Everything makes sense. But it is right there in C for me. Now, yeah, the Dungeon Coach just did a really good job on that one. And talking about YouTubers who make tabletop RPGs, I first had Simple System by myself, DC20 by the Dungeon Coach, and there's also a guy who goes by the name of Indestructible, Darren, who's a buddy of mine, and he has a tabletop RPG called Vagabond. Now, I might have to cheat here. I might have to do this, add a row below, and then, I don't know, give this a name. In between. Can you guys still see this? Let me just check if you guys can still see this. Let me just do it this way then. There you go. You can still see this, right? Yeah. Okay. This should work, right? I'm gonna put this. I'm going this in between. Otherwise, I have to go like B, C, and then D, and then E, right? So I'm just gonna put this right here. That's where Vagabond lies for me. Now, I'm gonna admit I haven't played a single game of Vagabond yet. Completely admit it. I'm planning on reviewing Vagabond on my channel early 2025, which is this year, Q1 of 2025. That's the plan. But I haven't gotten around to it because there's so much on my plate. But I have read a good part of it. I've watched a few videos on it, like a lot of videos on it. I've been roaming around the live streams of Terran himself and Destructiboy himself. Although I don't always chat in those live streams, I'm there a lot of times. So you might have probably been there with me. So yeah, Vagabond. Playing experience, none. Reading experience, a lot. And it is basically, it's his own thing. It's also kind of like, I don't want to say it's a stripped down version of 5th edition because that it is a completely its own thing. And it is more centered around like that, I don't know. It's like something that Indestructible does very well. I reviewed a book of him, which is like he has this collection of classes for 5th edition that he has on the Dungeon Masters Guild. He is really one of those people who is really good at that unapologetic fun type of thing, and that's what Vagabond is basically. It is super streamlined. Like, for example, if you have a bit of rule text where in 5th edition it's like half a page, for him it's like 3 sentences. He just writes it like tack, 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 bam, that's it. That's how I'm basically trying to write a Simple System. But it is not in the D tier because there are still like a lot of rules for, I don't know, for monsters, for art, for ability checks and all that stuff. There's like for drowning and all of that stuff. Those rules are all in there. So there's more going on, and also the art is incredible. It just feels completely different. But other than that, I want to like shy away from going too deep into it before I even have tried like 1 or 2 sessions of like actually testing it, basically. So I'm just gonna put that in the in-between. I might change my mind once I play it. Once I play it, I might like, holy shit, this belongs here, which I don't think it does, but that's where I'm putting Vagabond right now. So we have 5th edition Dungeons and Dragons. We have Streamline and Cypher System, but Cypher System is more of its own thing. Then we have Streamline 5th edition. Then we have, super unapologetic fun, dungeon crawling, dark-ish, mysterious, old school gameplay of Vagabond, which is super streamlined, but still has a lot of stuff going on to make the game its own thing. And then in like super duper streamlined, we have Nimble and we have the Simple System. Simple System is my own game. Nimble is a great streamlined game, and I really love streamlined games. That's why I'm designing my own, right? I want to go all the way up to the S tier right now. Some people might think I'm crazy for this, but for me, Wrath and Glory, and I'm still planning on reviewing this because I am now actively playing in a Wrath and Glory campaign. I have a Dungeon Master, Kevin, who is great. We have done a one-shot in Wrath and Glory in the 40k universe, which was a lot of fun. We laughed our asses off. And now, Gavin is actually, we are actually doing a alternative World War II setting. Yeah, an alternative World War II setting with the rules of Wrath and Glory. Because if you take the character sheet of Wrath and Glory and you imagine World War II, it just makes a lot of sense. It makes a lot of sense. We played that one shot, and then after the one shot, he was like, what if we play World War II? Because I think the game could really work. The mechanics could really work for World War II. And I like looked at the character sheet and was like, yes! Yes, alternative World War II, and by that I mean like Wolfenstein, Red Alert, that kind of stuff, right? So World War II, but with like Tesla coils, something like that, right? And but Wrath and Glory, I don't know if it belongs in A. It belongs above 5th edition and Cypher System, that's for sure. But I don't know if it belongs in A or S. Right now, for me, it feels like S, but that could also be because because it's a system that I've never played and I'm still learning it. It is a D6 system, and sometimes you're legitimately rolling 12 D6s and then have to figure out if you hit or how much damage you do, that kind of stuff. So for me, right now, it feels super crunchy. Also, the character sheet with like the defense and how that works and everything, there's a lot going on, and it is completely its own thing. It is even more different from D&D than the Cypher System is. It is super its own thing, which I respect it for because it works. It plays much more into averages. So if you're good at something, yeah, you're going to be succeeding in that much more often than with a D20 system, and that's because they use much more smaller die in order to see if something works, which averages things out. It's just how math works, right? But at the same time, there's just some things that bother me right now. Like, for example, you roll a d6, and a 1 and a 2 and a 3 is nothing. A 4 and a 5 is 1, and a 6 is 2. Like, that kind of stuff, I really need to get used to that. It takes me a couple of sessions to get used to that. I don't know why, but it just does. Next to that is Pathfinder. Pathfinder is a super crunchy system. I know, some Pathfinder players might be like, what? Put that back there, or put that back there, put that next to 5th edition. It's not more crunchy than 5th edition, but yes, it is. To my opinion, it is. I played a few sessions of this. I read a lot about it. I've done a lot of research about it, but I decided not to review it, not to do Pathfinder content on my channel, because I just don't. It's just not my game. It is. It is D&D. Okay, I'm gonna say something, and some people are gonna hate me for it, but keep in mind, it's my opinion. For me, it's D&D with even more crunch, without really being its own thing. There's different stuff in it. There's different lore. There's different races and classes, but when I pick it up, it feels like D&D. And that's basically, like, 1st edition of Pathfinder was like, when D&D 3.5 moved over to 4th edition, some guy was like, let's make our own 4th edition, which is Pathfinder, right? So that's where it came from. It is a great game for people who like crunch. I don't like to play it personally. I don't like to go that deep into it. But for people who like crunch, people who like that hardcore gaming, tabletop RPGing, Pathfinder is super good, super well done, and also, I forgot what I want to say about it. Like, yeah, for hardcore gamers. It's for hardcore gamers. It's for people who come together to, people who come together to kind of, in a way, try to defeat the system, right? There's a lot of players in 5th edition D&D that are in there that do that kind of stuff, try to do that kind of stuff. Those people are very happy with Pathfinder. With Pathfinder, you can make combinations that are absolutely insane. It's a great game. It's just not for me. But for me, it feels like an S tier in terms of crunch. It could be an A tier. I need to be careful what I put in the S tier. It's definitely more crunch than 5th edition, but it's also definitely, I don't know. Is it less crunch than Wrath and Glory? I'm just going to put it here. It might be here. It might be like another in-between thing. I don't know. I'm just going to put it there right now. And then last, but certainly not least, the RPG that made a gazillions amount of cash for the person who created it. Again, by a YouTuber, Shadow Dark. And I'm on the fence where I want to put this. Because Nimble is like, I don't know, has a few pages. Simple has a few pages, but Shadow Dark is like a book. But also it's super simple. It's about that boots on the ground, dangerous dungeon crawling. Like the reason you sat down with 2nd edition D&D, basically. You came to your friend's house and there was one game master who was outright there out to kill you, basically. I'm exaggerating, but Shadow Dark is really that old school boots on the ground gameplay, that dungeon crawling kind of stuff. It's super simple, and I want to make another in between. I don't know if I want to put it there or if I want to put it there. Now, if you have an opinion on anything of this, make sure to put that in the comments. I really like to hear. But I don't know if I want to put this there or there. But I'm gonna put this next to Vagabond. Yeah, for the simple reason of there just being more of it. More rules for different situations than, for example, with Nimble, and then, for example, with the simple system. I still think that Shadow Dark is much simpler and much more, I want to say streamlined, which is not true, because Vagabond was also super streamlined. Much just like simpler than Vagabond, but at the same time, I think it's somewhere in between. This is like a spectrum of its own, right? I can keep making tiers, right? I can keep doing this for days and have like, I don't know, tiers all the way up to infinity, but this is the list that I'm going with. This is it. This is it. So we have Wrath and Glory, which is Warhammer 40k, but you can also play World War II with that. I'm doing that right now. Pathfinder, all the way up there. Tales of the Valiant is the A tier game, which I'm playing actively right now. I love Tales of the Valiant by Kobold Press. It is D&D, but on steroids. Then we have D&D as a baseline and Cypher System as a baseline, but they are completely separate games. Cypher System is its own thing. We have DC-20, which is basically streamlined D&D. We have Vagabond, which is more streamlined D&D. Then we have Shadow Dark, which is, for me, old school dungeon crawling done really, really well. And then we have Nimble RPG, Nimble 5e, and the Simple System together, which are like super pick up and play RPGs, basically. You just pick them up, 5-10 minutes, bam, let's play. Ideal for what I said in the beginning of this video. You have a Christmas gathering, somebody in your family, your nephew is like, hey, I want to try playing RPG, and you're like, no problem, let's take the Simple System, or let's take Nimble 5e, and you're ready to play in a matter of minutes. This is my tier list. This is my Crunch RPG tier list, and I know there's a bunch of you who are not going to agree with me, which is perfectly fine, and I really want to hear about that in the comments below, and I will be roaming those comments and answering your comments. And until next video, oh, by the way, if you like this content, thumbs up, subscribe, and until next video, bye-bye.